Good morning. And thank you for being here to honor our veterans, those who've served and those who are still serving. So Reverend Val approached me a couple months ago about sharing my experience as a veteran. And I told her I'd think about it, but instantly I thought of my grandfather, and I knew I had to share his story. So my grandfather's name was Lieutenant Frederick J. Hunkler. He was a Marine and killed in action in World War II at the Battle of Iwo Jima, March 10th, 1945. And 19 days later, my mother was born, his only child. So he is one of the almost 7,000 that were killed in Iwo Jima, but one of about 111,000 that were killed in the Pacific alone, and not including Japanese. These were all like Navy, all the different services. So I'm not here just to talk about the tragedy of war, but what it does to our psyche. And do we believe that it's a necessary evil, or is it the physical and spiritual evolution of humankind? I tend now to think it's the latter, that we are evolving in these ways, not just on a personal level, but as a world evolving. I found a short statement in an article in the Unity magazine written in August of 1915 by Charles Fillmore. He speaks of how Americans are writing to him, and this is during World War I. They're writing to him, they're very sympathetic about the raging war in Europe, and they're pleading with the Fillmores to establish peace with prayer, petition, and treatments. He acknowledges, and I'm paraphrasing him, of course, he acknowledges that there is a natural response from all sane people, for universal peace, a peace that cannot be broken by ambitions of any nation, and that it will only be established when men see the insanity of war, and only until certain deep-seated errors are eradicated from human thought. So Charles Fillmore clearly understood that until humans evolve and change consciousness, we will inevitably have war. But until then, we need to honor those whose life paths ended and continue to end with war. We must honor those who were courageous and brave to fight for America's freedom, and in later wars, in what they thought was our freedom from the wrath of foreign governments. So those who were drafted at one time didn't have a choice when they were, during the draft. So it was just a few years ago, a cousin of mine brought a letter to us, to our family, and it was written by my grandfather, Freddie, as family members lovingly called him. In the letter, he was writing to his sister, my cousin's mother, Aunt Mary Ann. The letter was so full of positivity and humor, kindness, love, and respect for his sister. And in his kindness and his telling of being on a ship, not knowing what the next few days would bring, I saw bravery and courage like no other. He did not write of fear, nor about making it back home. He was hopeful for his family and his wife and unborn child. But reading it, I somehow saw deep down that he understood that this was his mission, his life path, and then he may not survive. And of course he did not. It was only a week later, after this letter was written, that he was killed in action. When I was younger, my mother spoke of my grandfather, stories she had learned from her aunts and grandmother about his personality and his kindness. Also the grief of my grandmother that she experienced when he passed. I was only a month old when she passed. Some said from heartache, from losing the love of her life 18 years prior. I was very proud of my grandfather, who he was and how he died for our country. And since I was not sure how to navigate my own life, I decided to enlist in the Army, which I did for 3 years. I was in Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then Fort Bliss, Texas, and then later a unit in Germany. I was 20 years old at the time, and I had ideas of serving my country because that's what the commercials showed us on TV, right? Be all you can be. Yeah, you remember those commercials? But I could also honor my grandfather and in some way keep that connection of family that I missed out on. So looking back, I now recognize that I was following a deeper path, one shaped by my desire to serve others. So when I heard that commercial, it just got to me like, oh, I can be somebody, you know, to help others. So although I was not fully aware of it at the time, this urge to help and support fellow human beings was always present. As my spiritual journey unfolded, I became increasingly aware of how important being of service has been in my life and career. So my military occupation, or MOS, was a 64 Charlie, a truck driver. Because of my love of travel, I thought I could train in the Army, and after 3 years, become a civilian truck driver, traveling the United States to see the sights. I was first assigned to a military intelligence unit in Fort Bliss, Texas. And though I sometimes drove trucks, they did put me in the truck maintenance office as a maintenance and parts scheduler specialist. But I was very well trained and the only trained truck driver in our unit for maneuvers. So at one point, our whole battalion went to Germany to reenact versions of World War II training practices. So I spent many nights standing guard out in the dark forest in Germany with only a flashlight and a red lens to see by, because we didn't want to be detected. One proud moment I had was when our unit was on a convoy. So our whole unit was driving in single file through the German countryside. And up ahead, a truck driver jackknifed his truck trying to cross a bridge. Because no one else could help him get out, they came to get me, which I was easily able to get him out. So I was very proud of that moment. So I enjoyed the camaraderie. My Army brothers, as I called them, were protective of me, and they let me know when some military intelligence was learned that might affect me. So one evening they told me to lock my truck doors. That's where I slept during Reforger, in my truck. I had a sleeping bag, but I didn't know my doors locked until that moment. So that was good. Because there was going to be a war, so a reenacted war is what was happening. I was a bit scared and excited. I heard rattling on my door throughout the night by possibly someone trying to capture me. I remember getting up in the morning and seeing someone from the other side of the conflict, you know, the enemy. They were tied to a tree and being interrogated, and he was in tears. And that really made a huge impression upon me, of course, which further deteriorated the glamour of it all. I had considered staying in the military as a career, but as my third year approached, I had just had my first daughter. We lived in Germany, and I knew I didn't want to be deployed away from her. So as time went on, I realized I did not like war. I did not like that we had to solve our problems with war and killing others. I also understood, though, the deep pain our family and others have endured and the great loss of so many. But I came to learn from my spiritual training and experiences that we each, and as a whole, evolve, and that we're all living in the time we choose and were made for. And that those veterans whom we are honoring today, they somehow knew deep down that this was their mission and life path as well. And so I honor them all.